So estate planning is an essential part of financial advice. After all, what's the point of accumulating assets if not for your future generations, if not thinking about your kids and your grandkids and how to make their lives a little bit better? The problem with estate planning, though, is it can be complicated and it can be messy. And I've certainly experienced that, and I'm probably sure that most of my audience at some point have seen complicated and messy when it comes to estate planning. Now, luckily, each year some new technology tools come out, and they help advisors and their clients in all kinds of ways in their lives. But one of the best tools I've seen in a while that has come out is something called ClearEstate. It's an end-to-end technological and service platform. And what it does is it supports both estate planning and settlement in both Canada and the US. And I'm a big fan. I've been telling everybody, I'm like, have you guys heard of this thing? It's really good. Because I can say that it's really good with confidence because I'm actually also a client. I'm going through the process as we speak. And I also believe in that. We've been offering it to our clients in our firm, and I wanted to go through it as a customer and see what the experience is. And I'll tell you that it's been excellent. And as a result, I thought that we would sort of dive deeper into this helps not only consumers, but helps advisors with their clients as well. Last episode, we spoke to Davide Pisanu, who's the co-founder and CEO, about his entrepreneurial journey. Like, how did he get from where he was to starting this platform and building this platform? So today, I wanted to talk a little bit more practically. How can advisors utilize this technology and utilize this service with their clients, and not only help service their clients better, but probably grow their business? Joining us today to talk about this is Devon Miller. He's the Director of Strategic Partnerships for ClearEstate. He's a Certified Executor Advisor, and he's pursuing his MTI, which I was wondering what that was. And it's Estate and Trust Professional. It's a designation with the Canadian Securities Institute. Right now, what he's doing is he works with enterprise partners like our firm in the field of wealth management and insurance, and he helps them develop their estate programs for all of their advisors and their clients. And it's been great. So welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Let's start with the basics. How did you get here? How did you get into the estate planning and technology world that we now live in?
Just like every little boy or girl out there, I dreamed of it since I was a young child.
Woke up every night, I'd love to get into estate planning.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of an accident. I was actually referred by someone that had previously worked for me in another industry, that we had kind of gone down different paths, and then they were at ClearEstate and wound up here. So before that, I actually spent 15 years in the automotive industry in sales management and operations. Yep. And if you go way, way back, I started my career as a mechanic, actually. So
wow,
quite an evolution there. But at the time, I was actually teaching at Centennial College when I got this inquiry. And it was interesting. I had been in the same business really for my entire career in different roles, but always up for a conversation. So I got chatting with co-founders here. And what they were really looking for was someone to start heading up their direct to consumer distribution.
Right.
And so, had a skill set that they felt would be aligned there, which was interesting because ClearEstate got started with a big group of, your technology people, your software developers and your product people and your engineers. And then the subject matter experts. You've got your lawyers and your trust officers and your tax accountants and your paralegals. And then they decided to add me to the mix.
And then there's you.
So yeah, but really, really great experience to come in and learn, a lot about the estate and trust business over the last few years. Leveraged a lot of those internal subject matter experts here and pursued the education as I did, and still going down that now.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic because, as I said earlier, it's a big part of financial advice. Like people, I know that a lot of financial advisors might focus on the aspects of investments and where they can invest their money, but the point, and if you talk to people who actually have money, and the conversation evolves is usually around estate planning. It's usually, yes, I've accumulated money. Yes, I have money. But what I really want to know and what I'm really interested in is how do I make sure that the money goes to the right spots? How do I make sure that my kids are going to be taken care of? How do I make sure my grandkids are going to be taken care of? And these conversations, because of our aging population, the whole baby boomer phenomenon, probably comes up more and more, and not everybody knows how to handle it. So maybe, to expand upon this, how does ClearEstate actually work for both clients and their advisors? Maybe you can say how that whole process works and how that relationship is.
Yeah. So, I mean, ClearEstate actually started off as a firm working to support executors through the entire process of estate administration, from first notifications to gathering assets and liabilities to submitting for probate, then liquidating assets, distributing them to beneficiaries, tax filings, everything that comes along that journey from, can be a year, can be 2 years, depending on how things go. And as we expanded on that, many executors at the end of the process would say, okay, it's time to get my own house in order now. Which really led to the expansion of estate planning, and supporting in wills, powers of attorney, incapacity documents, trust arrangements. And a part of that process, aside from distributions and end of life arrangements, is who's going to be my executor, who's going to help get this done. And often the response was, well, can't you do it? You seem to do a pretty good job with this last estate you helped me with, and I can't do it. I won't be here, and I don't want to make anyone else do it. And so that led to the further growth into the offering of professional executor services. So for clients, it became a place where really anything related to estate planning or administration, you could get it done in one spot without having to bounce between various professionals or institutions to accomplish what you needed. For advisors, it really, created a new aspect of probably one of the most robust options in their circle of influence.
Absolutely.
You might have a lawyer specializing in real estate or specializing in corporate law, or that person may only practice in Ontario, but through the joys of, virtual communications, now you've got some clients in other provinces that maybe have moved away. You've retained their relationships. And maybe your Rolodex in rural Saskatchewan is not as good as someone's that lives there, but you've got a client there now. And ClearEstate gave those options of now, regardless of what I need done here, what expertise and where across Canada, we're able to deliver both for the client and the advisor.
Well, I think you guys are solving a lot of problems, major problems that are existing in the industry. And one of them, and you touched on it, is just who wants to be an executor. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And anyone who's ever gone through it or had family members gone through it, people choose like their friend, or they choose, somebody who worked at a bank because they think financial, or, even worse, their unemployed kids get the job. So you must see all kinds of things in your, some of the horror stories that you've heard, but also some of the success stories. So what are some of the things, the big challenges that, a lot of consumers face in this area?
Really in choosing who, and I would say it's actually, you don't know what you don't know, in the sense of many people will come to it on an extreme either end of the spectrum of saying, my estate is super simple, like there's nothing hard here. And within about 15 minutes, they learn, hey, there's actually a lot going on to deal with. Or they come in and say, hey, this is going to be really complicated. I've got issues, but I don't know what to do. Right. I recognize these problems, but I don't know of a way to solve them. Can you help me? Right.
Well, as I said, I can speak with authorities since I'm going through the process, and I can tell you that it's eye opening. It's what you think, and I always thought I was a relatively organized guy, and not only that, I have a whole team of people who are supposed to stay organized as well. But what I found out is no one was actually talking to anybody. So it was to get everything into one spot. That was like a whole challenge in itself. And I bet, if that's me, it's got to be a lot of other people. And to your point, there's different, on the spectrum of complexity, and I would probably be at one end of that spectrum. But I can see this as a great service for everyone because, as I said, just being an executor in itself is if you have a full-time job and you're supposed to do all of these services, are you going to do a good job? And B, are you going to make everyone happy? I can tell you from family experience, my grandmother passed away, and that had to be over 10 years ago. I'm not sure our family has talked since. She designated a friend of the family for no reason that anyone could figure out. I can tell you that my aunt wanted to put a hit on him. She was so angry with the process. And I still hear about it to this day. But so you must also hear about those, and then you guys come in more or less to save the day.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that as I work with more and more advisors, I try and get them to normalize the concept of this, which shouldn't be hard. And a way I equate it is say, okay, well, you're alive. You have your advisor, their professional expertise. You have your accountant. If your lights go out, you get an electrician. If the water stops flowing, you get a plumber. But when it comes to estate administration and handling everything you spent your life accumulating and navigating the legal system and tax and all this, Uncle Bill, he's got it.
He'll do a great job.
All of the judgment that you have previously exercised in leveraging professional expertise has gone out the window. And so we try and say, why is this any different, right? Make sure it's a big event, it's important, and the cost of a mistake can be very high. So leverage professional.
So the cost, I was going to say the actual cost in money, but I can also tell you from experience, the emotional cost that can happen within a family is also devastating as well. And it's a very high price to pay for, I'm going to say either saving some dollars or, getting your head around outsourcing things that you're not the expert at. Like there are people like yourselves in the company that do this for a living. They're probably going to be far better equipped to give the right advice and do things in a more mechanical manner than, the raw emotions that come up when estates are available, when that happens. Anytime money is going to come, and it might come free, there's a lot of emotions flying around.
There definitely is, right? And they're all the things that nobody wants to think about happening, or oh, my son, daughter would never let that happen, and we kind of say, well, let's just make sure it never happens.
Well, and also people put off. We all believe that we're immortal, and we have all the time in the world, and we also know that. Even from my days back in the insurance business, we used to say, look, this is one thing that you have to work on, because the mortality statistic in Canada is actually the same as it is in the United States, which is 1 death per person per lifetime. Everybody gets a turn. It's a 100% guarantee at some point you're going to use this service. We just don't know when we're going to use this service.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. And it's interesting. Again, you see advisors and clients work to put a lot of planning into things that they don't actually think will happen. And you don't want them to happen. They'd be serious if they do, and they're right to plan for them. That's good risk management. But if I think in terms of, my critical illness insurance or disability, I don't intend to finish chatting with you and go get hit by a bus.
Right.
I don't intend for my house to burn down tomorrow, but it's insured too. And I don't think it will ever happen. My estate planning, like you said, 100% chance it's going to happen. I want it to be in the way distant future, but I know I'm going to need it. I know it's going to be relevant.
Yeah. Right. It's 100%. And also within the, financial planning context. And that's what we're always saying, that, they will literally spend an hour with a client talking about the economy, or, this week, Trump and tariffs and how it affects their portfolio and reallocations and blah, 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 blah. And yet spend no time asking people about, where do they want their assets to go? Who do they want them to get them? Are their kids going to be looked after? So, I think this also puts the priority and the context within the financial planning spectrum, that you have to prioritize this when you're talking to clients.
Yeah, and I think it's not just the what you want to happen, because that's pretty easy for a lot of people to say, actually. It's how is it going to happen?
Right.
How is it going
That's
to
a
get
good
done?
point.
Like, how are we going to do this? And, in terms of portfolio conversations, I read a study probably sometime last year, but it talked about a concept of wealth confidence and how people feel about their situation, regardless of how much wealth they've actually accumulated.
Right.
And at a certain threshold, it actually stopped working. Once you got enough, you were not more confident. It didn't help. And the number one driver of further wealth confidence once you hit that plateau was actually estate planning,
Mm.
in the terms of now you're no longer worried about yourself. You're worried about your family, those around you, your community, your legacy. So especially if you're looking for that way to drive further value for a client, or you've got some red ink on this quarter statement. How do I prove my value to someone of what we're doing recently? Estate planning is a great avenue to go down.
No, I agree. So let's say I'm an advisor out there. I'm listening to the show. How do they harness the power of ClearEstate? How do they use them not only to deal with the clients they have, but continue to grow their business? Some of the examples you might have run across.
Yeah, I think in terms of estate planning, it really shows care again beyond just the client themselves, and caring about those around them, and things that would happen when they're gone. And this can be a bit of a double-edged sword. A lot of advisory practices talk about segmentation and unique value proposition, which is definitely a necessary way to grow your practice and establish something unique to you. The downside to that can sometimes be excluding a lot of people who maybe want to be your client when the time is right.
Right.
Particularly within households that you already work with, those Gen 2 clients. You hear about the Henry concept, the high earner, not rich yet.
Not
Right.
yet.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I've got to pay off my student loans and I want to save up for a down payment. I don't have a lot of investable right now. But when that wealth transfer event happens, if you've segmented to the point that you have no relationship with this person and you ever spoke with them, well, when that inheritance comes, they don't want to talk to you
Right.
because you had no
Or
interest in them
no.
until they got rich.
Right.
That's the pro athlete that finds all these new friends once they sign their first contract.
Exactly when they get signed. Yeah.
Um, and so the planning is a way to kind of understand what that transfer is going to look like, and their involvement of the family or people who aren't their family but are important to them,
That's
and
also a
learning
good
that.
point that I never actually thought of, right? Who else is
And
important to you in your life?
yeah, and seeing what's going to happen there is a way of, you hear more and more about living gifts too. And that's a fun part of being an advisor, getting client to spend their money. You say, hey, do you want to see the impact of this while you're still alive? And you talk about things like that, if someone can afford to do so. And it's a more personal decision, but do you want to bring this person into the conversation for their own planning? Because this is going to be pretty impactful in their life. And,
Right.
and knowing this could affect some decisions now. And that's how you start getting those warm introductions to people that, you have a relationship with someone already that they know that you've hopefully done a very good job for. And I mean, really, what's easier, talking to the family and people that your clients already know that they'll say, hey, I like this person, or going out and running a networking event or a seminar to a room full of people that you've never met, that you don't know if they're going to be a fit, that you don't know if they hit your thresholds. I think it's a really high percentage opportunity too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, the other thing that you guys offer, I found out, is you also do work for clients who own real estate in the United States as well, because that probably has a whole nother level of complexity that people are not probably familiar with, and depending on the state, some real complexity. So maybe expand a little bit about that and how you've helped some clients.
Yeah, so I mean, cross-border planning is definitely something that is a little more difficult and doesn't affect everyone, but for those that it does, it's pretty impactful. So we built a network of external counsel that we work with in a few select U.S. states, so not entirely, but really we targeted the states that were most
We're
effective with
full of
Canadian
Canadians,
clients.
or used to be full of Canadians.
Yeah, the snowbird states. Yeah. Absolutely. So those in California, Arizona, Nevada, Florida, Texas, New York, we can help with secondary planning there through our network for, condos, vacation homes, anything of the sort. We can make sure that's encompassed in your plan and figure out how to make sure things are copacetic with your planning here as well.
Yeah. And I think that's critical because, again, a lot of people do not really understand some of the estate laws. I can think of specifically Florida as a place I live as well. So, there's some big complexities there if it's not set up right, and some potentially very damaging part to your all over estate if it's not done correctly.
Yeah, probably one of the toughest ones I saw in the US was actually in Texas, um, which has a unique, statute that if a will isn't probated in 4 years after somebody passes, it's as if it never existed. Uh,
Really?
unless
See?
unless you can really prove that you didn't know it existed. Like if,
Wow.
and we had a client that was the case. She hadn't gone through probate in over 4 years, after her common law partner passed. They weren't married. And then she decided she wanted to go through probate because she wanted to move. She
Right.
wanted to sell the house and go. So, okay, well, I need to get this house in my name if I'm going to move. And they'd planned, right? We've got a will. I want to make sure my common law partner's looked after. But because this time had passed to the point that the will would be invalid and she knew about it, this individual that had passed away actually had children from a prior relationship that with no will would stand to inherit this home.
Oh my goodness.
So now she had herself in a position of if she went through the administration, she was going to lose her house.
Wow.
So, in one of those things of just like, oh, I'll do it later, or it's not that important. Again, it's what you don't know that is going to be that
Well,
landmine.
like I said, I've been in this business 30 years. That's the first time I heard that that's a thing in Texas. And why would I know that actually? Unless,
Exactly. Why would you?
uh, but you also make a point that is also important in estate planning, which is this whole, what I'm going to call modern family age that we're in, where there's wives, there's ex-wives, there's kids from previous marriages, there's kids from, your former marriage, there's stepkids, there's like, I'm no, I have as dysfunctional a family as there is. I was going to say 10 of us could travel and we all have different last names. So people collecting the passports or and we're like, we're all related. It's a family. But this also probably brings in a whole other level of thinking and complexity as it comes to estate planning, this whole modern family thing where, groups of people have married, remarried, kids from multiple marriages. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
It 100% does. And as you said, we're in the age of it that it's more frequent and more common. And I think that's made some people underestimate the impact of it. When we say just because it's no longer rare doesn't mean it doesn't introduce complexity.
Right.
And this is the thing where wealth is not an indicator of client complexity. You can
Correct.
have a very high net worth client with an extremely simple situation, having divested from a business and a simple family dynamic. You can have someone in a more mass affluent category that, again, based on family dynamics or a child with a disability or real
Mm.
property in multiple jurisdictions, that there is a lot to plan for. And that's not weird. It's not anything that you don't know lots of people in a similar situation, but there's things you have to do to make sure it's going to play out well, in that case.
Actually, another good point, and I know that we had talked about it, kids with, having children with disabilities, and how is their care going to be provided for, and how is the estate going to look after that, and make sure that they're okay for a long period of time is a whole other dynamic that, to your point, probably happens more frequently than people think. But are we actually thinking through the impacts of that and what we should be doing from an estate planning point of view?
I think on that too, it's, a lot of the individuals that we work with, and there's a lot of families that we help with disability planning. Um, the money's actually secondary because they've known for so long that long-term care is going to be part of it. They have an RDSP, they're socking things away. Like that's actually not the hard part. It's how is it going to happen and who's going to do it? If you only have one child, right, and you're gone, who's going to administer that trust when you're gone?
Right.
And We say, if you want someone to help you move, it's a weekend. If you want them to be your executor, it's a year or two. If you want them to be a trustee, it's decades.
I was going to say he could be forever. Yeah.
That's the biggest ask. And so, our ability to help clients plan and then actually function in a trust administration capacity for them for an ongoing basis really relieves a lot of that anxiety about what's going to happen. And if they do have another child or a family support mechanism, we say, you know what, let that person just be their sibling, their confidant, their support. They don't have to be the person who's worried about trust administration records and T3 filing and having to say, no, you can't have money for that because I don't want your ODSP to go away or whatever. Just let them be friends, let them be family, and we'll worry about the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So what are you excited about next? What's next for ClearEstate?
You know what? I think one of the fun analogies is they say it's a niche business that affects everyone.
Very true. Very true.
And the other one, if you remember Konica Minolta,
yes.
So I mean, people think cameras, but really it was imaging products, right? Fax machines and X-rays and all that. And they ran a campaign a long time ago where the tagline was, "Nobody cares what we do."
I like it.
It was hilarious. And they showed this office and then they took away all the things they did, right in the middle of the day. And I mean, everything ground to a halt. And so for us, when I think about, how quickly our reach has grown throughout Canada and throughout our various advisory partners and things like that, it's still a small reach in terms of how many people you can do this for, because as much as it's not top of mind for someone in their 20s per se, everyone at some point is going to deal with this as a planner, as someone who's experienced loss. So, the market potential is only ever getting bigger. And the part that really, I don't know, exciting is the right word, but exciting and I enjoy it is I know that everyone we have worked with is in a better position after the fact. Nobody is worse off having their estate settled well. No one is worse off having an estate plan. You go in and out of every interaction knowing something good happened here. And, that's a nice place to work.
It's a great way to get up in the morning and knowing that probably someone's going to be better off because of the work that you do. Like there's probably no better way to start the day than that mindset. And I think that's the beautiful part about giving advice, and it's the beautiful part about what you guys do on the estate side. So now I always do, if you listen to the podcast, I get my rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and it's the first one that pops into your mind. So the first question I always ask is, what is the best book you've ever read?
Good to Great, Jim Collins.
A classic, one that I've read many, many times. So I've endorsed it many times. So it's the best. What is the best advice that you have ever received?
Whatever you decide to do it the best you can.
I like it. That's, very similar. My dad used to give me that same advice. If you're going to do something, do it right, or don't do it at all. But don't do anything. Yeah. He used to say, don't do anything half-assed. Half-assed is not do anything. Do it to the best of your ability, or don't do it all. And I think that's excellent advice. And my third question is, how do you want to be remembered?
Oof. I'm 37. I mean, I have an estate plan.
You got lots of time to be remembered for something.
I have an estate plan, but I hadn't really thought about my legacy. Goodness me. That's tough. I don't know. It's someone that was impactful in a positive way, both professionally, but personally as well. Right. Not as well.
I think that's a good ambition to be remembered. So let me tell you, in summary, what did I learn from this podcast? I learned that estate planning is a big topic, and it's a very big topic, and it should be incorporated into every wealth management practice. As I said, people, as much as they care about accumulating money, as we talked about, at some point, that really doesn't matter as much anymore. They have enough money, they're going to be fine, and it doesn't make them any happier to accumulate more. What becomes important in people's lives at some future point is, how are they going to what is that legacy? How are they going to make sure that their money that they've worked so hard for and that they've sacrificed for and that they've accumulated is going to make it to the right people? It's going to make it to the next generation. It's going to make it to the people that they love. It's going to make it to their grandchildren. And that part is, you have to think it through. It's a bunch of organization. And then the how, right? As we talked about, it's the how you really have to think about. First of all, how is it going to get there? Who's going to administer it? How is it going to be done professionally? Who can I trust to do it? And I think ClearEstate does a great service. It sort of takes all of that, puts it into a process so that you can think it through and really come out on the other side being confident that you've really accomplished what you set out to accomplish, which I know now that the people, at least it's going to go to the right spot, and hopefully their lives are going to be better because of it. So I learned a lot. It was great. Devon, any final words for our audience?
Have the conversation, because as much as people might underestimate their own situation, I can say from experience, advisors underestimate their situation too. You'll think they're simple, it's easy because you've known them for a long time. You've watched their situation evolve, but you'll learn a lot in an estate planning conversation, even of 30 minutes. So just talk, there'll be value there.
Thank you so much for joining the show. And I think we've all learned a lot today.
Thanks, Chris.